Hi, Stefan the BMW DIY guy. My project today is the Avant-4 from AvinUSA. I'm really excited to install this into my E53 X5, and this is going to be an upgrade over the Avant-3 that I have in now. This is going to bring new functionality, a higher level of Android, even a whole new UI and to the head unit itself, and I'm really excited to get this installed. Now, if you're coming from the stock OEM, I'm going to do my best to try to tell you how to take your stock OEM out, because I've gone through the Avant-2, the Avant-3, and now the Avant-4, so I've made some changes into my X5 that I can't put back anymore. So bear with me, I'm going to do my best to try to talk you through it. So if you're coming from OEM, on how to take those components out, how to take the existing head unit out, and how to move forward with that as well. The other thing that's really exciting about the Avant-4 is that if you have a DSP enabled E53, also the 5 series, that used to be a deal breaker. You used to not be able to put in an aftermarket head unit because your amp, that DSP amp, wouldn't turn on. Now it will. So I came up with a workaround a long time ago for the Avant-2 that really was really complicated and significant. You don't have to do that anymore. You can just put this straight in, it works great, and will sound even better. So this is a great way to add functionality to your car. Let's get out to the garage, let's get started. Alright guys, so we're out here in the car, and if you've watched my videos and my installs over time, you know that I'm not OEM on my E53 anymore, anything but. So I'm going to do my best to try to speak to what it's like to come from OEM to do the Avant-4 install. This is actually an Avant-3 that I'm going to be swapping out in place for the Avant-4. I'm really excited to get this new iteration of this head unit into the car. And I've really enjoyed the Avin products in my E53 now for quite some time. I first installed the Avant-2 quite some time ago, and a number of years ago, and really enjoyed it, and really enjoyed the difference and improvements it brought to the car. So I've got the original trim piece. So if you've got the OEM head unit, it comes in 2 pieces. First piece will be covered by this top trim piece. It's going to look similar or different to yours. It has a little depress, plate on it where it'll come and the door will open up and you'll see the top half of your head unit, right? So this used to be in place. I've still got it. I've still hung on to it. Probably should sell it. It's probably worth something because it's in good piece or in good condition. So when you double press on this, you notice that there are little clips here on either side, and you can pull those clips, and then this piece will come out. Now at that point, you'll see the separation of your 2 OEM head unit pieces. You've got the tuner section, you've got a CD changer or similar on top if you have the business CD, that sort of thing. You're gonna have a series of screws to take those and take those out. And that point is where you're gonna get in a little bit of the challenge and the changes that I've made over the years. So I sincerely am gonna do my best to try to speak to it, but the best I can do for the OEM setup is now simulate what it used to be. So let's come back to that in a second once we've got this out, and I can show you some of the frame that's in there, which is different than what you'll see in the same generation of 5 series and 7 series. So now I've got the Avant-3 in. If you're doing the same upgrade that I am, be careful taking this trim piece out. Once it goes into place, it really snaps in really tight. So I took my plastic trim tool, got underneath the edge and pried very gently up so I can get my fingers under one edge, get my fingers under the other, press down on the head unit, and then the frame will come off. So once you have the frame off, you should have 2 very small, or 2 or 4 very small screws. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now my 2 bottom ones out, so I left those out on purpose because I was doing some work with the backup camera and I was taking the head unit in and out. So my 2 bottom screws are out right now. I've got 2 little teeny tiny top screws in. So you just take those out and then the entire head unit will come right out. And you've got all your cabling and wiring harness. So really simple. So I'm gonna take these 2 out, take it out, and I'm gonna unplug all of the connections here on the Avant-3, which I don't feel like I need to walk through every single thing, because when you pull this out, like I said, if you're making the same change I am, then you know how to plug these, plug and unplug these. If you're installing the Avant-4 new, we will walk through plugging them all in when I'm putting the 4 in. So I don't think I need to walk through, here's the back of this and here's every single connection, pull all of your connections off, because you've got antenna connections that screw on, you've got a whole series of plugs that come in, and you're just gonna pull all those plugs out. And then this piece will come out. It's about this thick, about this thick and about, you know, that big, and it just comes right out. So I feel like I don't need to explain that part. So I'm going to take these screws out, I'm going to pull the head unit out, and we're going to talk about the frame. And we talk about how if you're coming from OEM, the differences you're going to have to make, or the changes you're going to have to make to get the Avant-4 to fit, but all pretty straightforward. Okay, so if you ignore all the ugly cabling here for a second, so I've got mostly cabling out for the Avant-3, and what I want to show you now is, and again, we're going to have to simulate from OEM. So if you're coming from there, definitely check out some of my earlier videos, check out my Avant-2 install, and check out some of the documentation I've put up to see straight OEM install. Though it's changed a little bit over time too, so depending on, we're going to do our best to try to simulate whichever experience you're coming from, whether you're coming from the Avant-3 or 2 or 3 experience, or you're coming straight from OEM. So you're going to want to take your vents out. My vents are a little bit loose because they've been out enough times. When they're in place, they're fine. But right now, basically, I'm just getting my fingers up and back behind them and popping them forward. As you can see, they'll come out. Now, you've got your vent control hook right here. You've got a couple of different options. It hooks up deep into the inside of this. Generally, what I will do is I will put it up on my dash in a place where it's up and out of the way. So I don't have to go with the hassle of unhooking that cable, which is a little bit of a hassle at times. So your vents are out, and now you can see your frame. Now again, coming from the Avant-3 place, I've got my frames installed. Now you can get these aftermarket frames. These are replicating the OEM navigation frames, and I got these from Avin. And they're set right here. They're little C-shaped frames like this. They have an arm that goes down in, and you can see exactly where they screw in, right down here at the bottom, right here, and they attach into place. Now, the one thing that I had to do, and it's going to be a little bit hard to see, but there was a little notch right here, a little notch right here, a little notch right here. What I did was I widened those notches to get this frame to fit better, because what you have on the outside of these frames right here and right here are the mounting screws. Here and here, here and here are the mounting screws for when the Avin head unit goes in. So this frame needs to go into place. The upper part of this frame will be held into place by your vents. As you can see, they look a little loose right now, but that's okay. They're held in by a screw at the bottom. When your vents are in, your vents will press in and hold these frames in place. So your head unit's gonna be in nice and secure and won't move around, won't wiggle, won't squeak. So that'll be great. So I had a little bit of little notches right here in the plastic of this frame. Now the other thing that I want to talk to, that the best I can do is just talk to you, because I have what I have in my car. When I first pulled my OEM head unit out, I found that there are 2 different types of internal frames. This frame, you know, locks in right here like this, and parts of it are still there. Parts of that internal frame are still there, and this would slide into place and lock into place, right? So I lifted this up, undid these clips, this slid out. Then you can see there's screws, and your 2 pieces of your head unit will come out, assuming you don't have OEM navigation, the old navigation system, right? So this is the business CD or business head unit. So what I found was this frame on the inside was different depending on which E53 you had. I found from research the majority of them did not have this big boxy frame in it. It had a frame where you could take a couple of screws and the whole frame would come out. And would leave all of this space open, which made it very easy to install, and these mounting frames went directly into place, and it was perfect. I found in my case, I had this big boxy frame that was different than most references I could find, and I had to make, for the Avant-2, I had to make significant modifications to this frame to get it in, and I documented them all, but obviously that's not applicable anymore with the Avant-3s and the Avant-4s, especially with the 4s now, right? So you may see, if you're doing this from OEM, hopefully you will see a big empty space here and a frame, an internal framing that you can pull a couple of screws and the whole framing comes out. If you don't, and you have this original boxy frame that I had, including a crossbar that went across here, there's a crossbar back here in the back, and this boxy frame stuck out quite a bit. I had to cut a notch above and below to get this frame to fit in, like I described just a second ago. I know this is a lot of talking and not much to show. I apologize, but obviously I got to do the best I can with what may be a different OEM experience than what I had or what I have now, because I've gone from the Avant 2, the 3 to the now to the 4. So what you have may be a little bit different. To cut these notches, all I used was a really strong utility knife, and I cut down and I cut down and then snapped. This plastic is strong but brittle, so I cut notches on either side to how deep I wanted to get them and just snapped it out, and they snapped out really cleanly. And then these sit in those notches, these upper parts of these flanges sit in the notches. Now, if you've got the other style frame, you will have a place for screws here and here, and this thing will screw in top and bottom. Mine do not. That's okay. All right, so I'm going to grab my Avant 4 and walk you through plugging it all in and walking through all the connections once I get all of the 3 stuff out. So a lot of these things are going to be the same. If you're coming from a 3 going to the 4 like I am, you may have a situation where, you know, you're taking all these components out. I'm gonna do that in this case, and I'm going to take all of my previous components out just so everything is new, everything is refreshed, and everything's ready to go from the new kit. All right, so I'm going to take the remainder of the Avant 3 cabling out. I'm going to show you how to install the 4. Okay, so I brought in some additional lighting because I'm starting to get shadows, so if it looks a little different, that's why. Okay, so here's the Avant 4. This looks quite a bit different than the 3, at least in design. The 3 was really kind of flat and thick. This has the body that sticks back, and the connections are a little bit different as well. So if you're coming from the Avant 3, make sure that you change out all of your wiring harnesses. I've basically pulled everything to make sure that I don't have any of the previous wiring, any of the previous cabling, which just makes sense to me. So everything really only goes in one spot. Everything's labeled. You know, you've got your radio, GPS, your Wi-Fi antenna. So as you're looking at all these different connections and you look at what you want to add in, they really only go into one place. As you look at these plugs, they really kind of only go into one place, right, as you go through all the plug sets. So it's really not that hard. The other thing you're going to want to do is take a look at all of the connections that you have, and do you need them all? So for example, this is a great connection. So this wiring bundle for me right now, this is for external speaker systems, right? So if I had an aftermarket setup and all of my speakers were coming in through RCAs, you know, front, rear, amp, all these different connections, I don't. They're all coming in through the OEM harness. So I don't need this at all. So I'm just going to take that and set it aside. So look at each of these connections and make sure that you have everything on it that you're going to want to use. If you don't need it, then don't plug it in. I mean, there's no reason to have all of those extra connections hanging out the back if you don't need or want them. So, and they all plug into one place. Now, let me set this down for a sec. Now, what you do have is here is our, you'll kind of hear me use interchangeably. I'll call it the daughter harness or the wiring harness. This is that add-in harness that we're talking about. And there's 2 different styles depending on what you have. So when you if you're coming from OEM, when you pulled it out, you've got this plug on the back, and it's got this big horse collar. You rock the horse collar down and it comes off the back of your OEM head unit. There's an older style with round barrels that looks significantly different. These are little pin blades. There's also an adapter if you have the older round style as well, but this is the most common, bar none. So this is really easy. What you're going to do is you're going to take this is the male side, this is the female side. You're going to take it and just slot it into this wiring harness, squeeze it in, and then lock down the collar. So now this is all plugged in and ready to go. Now the other thing you're going to really want to do, if you notice on this primary wiring harness, you've got this white plug here. This is going to be for your CAN bus adapter right here. So make sure that that's snapped and plugged into place. That's going to help give you controls, steering wheel controls, and all the rest. This is going to be what plugs into the back of the unit itself as we go here. So this is going to be what plugs into the back of the unit itself right here. So that should be fine as we look at it. And then so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to pick out all of my different adapters and make sure that I use what I want to use, because there's a lot of cables here that you don't need necessarily. So if you have the old style antenna plug, this big round antenna plug, you can put it into this adapter. The adapter will plug into the back of the head unit. So really the decision at this point is where you want to install everything and where you want to install your antennas. So forgive the plastic. So you've got your GPS antenna as well. I didn't have the OEM nav, so I don't have a splitter or anything coming off a GPS antenna here in the car. So I'm going to take this. This is magnetic. And you can also use sticky as well, and just stick it up high in your dash. I usually will put it up underneath the top skin of the dash here, so it has a good view of satellites. So the next step for you is really dependent on what you need. Go through, make sure, look at the wiring harnesses that you need or don't need. The ones you don't need, set them aside. Okay, so you've got your original antenna, which this wiring should come back off your head unit, your OEM head unit, or Avant 2 or 3. In this case, I also have the TPMS system, so I've got that connected, and I've got the antenna for that placed all the way back in the back. Now, the other thing I wanted to show here really quickly is I've run a USB extension. I'm going to show a trick when we're all done, but it's under that center glove box. I've actually run the DVD drive and put it into my center console, and I was trying to find a good place to put it. The glove box was not convenient for driving because you'd always have to reach while driving, and it just really wasn't good. In my center console, under my armrest, most people have the little CD sleeves, like cassette, where you can put in CDs and they push in. I found that came out really easily. I slid it. There's these long fingers that kind of hold it into place. I pried those fingers up, and that cassette piece came out. Then I was able to take the DVD drive and slide it right back in the same place, and it fit like it was designed to be there. I didn't have to put in any screws. It's really tight. And it fits in perfectly, and it looks basically OEM. It looks really nice. It's now a vertical load DVD drive underneath my right elbow. I'm left-hand drive, obviously. So not a lot to show right now because I'm just kind of walking you through each component as you go. So I've got my CD run that comes up. I have my backup camera cables that come up that run up here. So let me grab some of these. Let me lay some of these out. One other thing I wanted to show is choices of where to put your USB. Okay, so you've got your USB cables. I'll come off here as I'm off frame a little bit with all of the cables. Okay, so this will plug in to the back of your head unit, and then you've got some CD cable choices, or CDs. Wow, sorry, I'm thinking of the CD drive underneath my elbow. Your USB ports, right? So one of them is pretty short. So this USB port I'm going to use for my forward-facing and backup camera. So because this one's going to be back behind. These other two I'm going to take, and you can route them. You can get through the side here and down through the supports into your glove box. So both of these are going to be sitting over in my glove box. So let me lay out some of the cables I want. Let me get this laid out a little bit better, and I'll show you how it all hooks up. I've got everything plugged in, and it's upside down right at the moment, so it's facing this way so I can tip because of cable length and everything that's going on. I wanted to show you all the choices I've made, and I'm really going for the minimalistic approach. If I don't need the cables plugged in, if I don't need some of these extra connections, I'm not going to plug them in. So I've got my GPS antenna, which is installed right here, directly with the adhesive directly up in the center of my dash. It should have good visibility there. I've got my Wi-Fi antenna, which is over here on this side, again with the adhesive up against the dash. So GPS, Wi-Fi. I've got the aftermarket TPMS system installed here. I've got the two connections here and here, the kind of purple and green or mint for the USB cables, and I'll talk about those in just a second. And I've got my OEM antenna connected right here. Now I'm going to be a little bit careful with this, which is also why I'm holding this at a strange angle, because this cable's been torqued on enough times that this connection looks just a little frayed, so I'm going to be careful with it. And then you've got your primary main connection over here. I've got my CAN bus adapter plugged in. I've got my main wiring harness plugged in. And then I also have my backup camera from Avin plugged in here along with the trigger wire that's been connected here as well. And that's what I had on the Avin 3, so I've just transferred it over for the Avin 4. So at this point, that's it. That's everything that needs to be in. So all you really need to do at this point is good, clean cable management and tuck it back in. Now let me touch on the USB here really quickly. So I have the USB drive, and then I also have the forward-facing USB camera. So off this primary wiring harness, I have the USB that's taken up by the forward-facing camera. And with these two connections, right, there are two USB plugs. I've run one over into the glove box. Now in the E53, if you look at the little hydraulic piston that's the support strut for your glove box. There's a lot of extra space around that support strut, and you can take the kind of purple and green end of this cable, fit it up where that support post is, or that little support shock is, fit it up, and you can fit it up and over into this side. So I'm using the USB cable that's on this, the short one, for one of the connections, which is my forward-facing camera. And then I pulled, because then there's two more, right? I left one in the glove box. I pulled the other one in to the inside here as well for the USB drive, which is going to be plugged in back here behind. I don't need to unplug it. I've got the cabling that comes up underneath my consoles, or underneath the center console right here. So that's where I'm going to keep that. So then at this point, it's just cable management, right? So just take all this, be very gentle so you don't bang anything up. Just tuck your cables back in. You've got a lot of extra space by comparison to what was in here before. So you should have the ability to fit this in pretty cleanly. Make sure that your antennas don't stick up or anything strange. I'm going to turn my GPS antenna there a little bit, and then just work it back into place and work the cabling down, okay? Right into right there. And then just like I showed earlier with the Avant-3, we've got the two little screws here and the two little screws at the bottom. I'm going to put all four in this time. What you can also do, because again, your center vents are going to hold down that mounting frame. So I'm going to turn my vents around and get them reinstalled. Let's just get this turned around a little bit, get your cable set in. Just take that and just push it back into place, and that'll hold the top part of those flanges down, at least in my case, right, as I've described. So then you've got this, and you can lock this into place. Now I'm going to put both of these screws in, and we're pretty much done at that point. Everything's hooked up. I know this has looked really simple. I've tried my best to try to summarize, because if you're coming from OEM, the difference is I just can't simulate very well anymore. So coming from the Avant 2 or 3, this is pretty simple. Take the screws out, take it out, replace the wiring harness, put it back in. But it's also not that hard either. Now, if you do have the forward-facing DVR camera, I've installed it right here next to my mirror on this side, and I've run the cabling down my headliner and down the A-pillar. So when I'm done, I'm going to take my camera down, and I'm going to kind of show you where I've run things. I'm going to show you the DVD drive that's under the armrest, all the sort of things that's just difficult to show right now, or I'd have to swing the camera around a bunch. So I'm going to get these two screws in, I'm going to get this locked in, and then we'll power it up, and you'll see the first startup with me. All right, so I've killed all the lights because I want to make sure that you can see the screen really well. And I've put the outer frame on because we're pretty much good to go. So let's bring it up. All right, so my iBus app is coming up first. Kill volume here really quick. Let's go back to home. So I'll plan on doing a full walkthrough at my first opportunity. But I just kind of want to show a high-level functionality. Let me flip the lights on. You can see light colors really, really good. So volume control, that's volume off my steering wheel. And if you can see it in the radio app right here, you can see I'm cycling up through the radio with my steering wheel controls as well. So the iBus integration is working great. I have the DSP app or amp in this car. So obviously sound is up and working, and I'm going to keep sound at a minimum because every time I've got the radio or some artist's album in the background, YouTube gives me a hard time and they have me take my video down because it belongs to somebody else. So as you can see, we're up and working. It's touchscreen. You can go through all your different tiles. Looks really good. The iBus app is going to be key for you. So let me touch on the iBus app here really quickly, just because it's going to be super important in your car if you have the DSP system. So absolutely vital that you have the iBus app up and running. So what you need to do is on the little hash mark up here in the corner, I've got it attached to my wireless. So just go up in the little hash mark up in the corner. So it needs to be attached to the internet, and then you'll scroll down and you'll go to unlock. And you'll hit unlock. It'll go out, it'll talk to the servers for the iBus app, it'll verify your VIN, and it'll come back and it'll work. And then if you have any problems, as I keep hitting home, sorry, that's just me hitting the wrong buttons here. So what you'll have from there, from the iBus app, is you've got the DSP app as well. that will need to be unlocked. And you can hit the little button there. It says DSP start was sent, which means it's talking to the DSP app in the back. That's why we have sound, which is great. So all of that will take care of it. Now, the DSP app itself, I'm not going to deep dive into right now. There's some really cool functionality in here. This is an app. You can actually do some mild coding in your car. You can do all kinds of functionalities. You can really deep dive into the DSP app as far as settings, configuration, everything you can possibly imagine. So that could be a video unto by itself. All right, so here we are going through the app. We're going through all the apps. Works great. We've got our radio working. So that's good stuff. And like I said, I'm going to avoid having a copyright license takedown on my video, so I'm going to kill sound for right now. The other thing that I've noticed immediately, I've only just started working with this, is that your radio presets, you've got a ludicrous number of radio presets that you can go through. So 18 in this case, which is absolutely fantastic, and they're easy to get to. But all in all, working really, really well. Colors work, colors match correctly. It's up and working. My backup camera works. I double checked to make sure that that was set up correctly. So we're all pretty much good to go at this point. I'll plan a high level, app by app, stage by stage walkthrough as we go through this. But for now, for the install video, we're all done. It looks great. All right, back inside, and as you can see, all done. Tools put away. Everything's locked up and ready to go. So I'm really pleased with this project and what it does to bring some new technology to the car. Now, I love my X5. It's a little bit older. It's a 2001, but it still looks in great shape. It's been maintained really well, and I'd love to be able to add that kind of that current layer of technology, to keep it up to date and bring functionality that it would never have otherwise. So there's no reason why you can't do this for your car. As you can see, it's really not that hard. I'm really familiar with the process, and so it's easy for me, but my goal is to make it easy for you too. There's no reason to have all that extra expense and have time away and someone else in your car when this is something you can do yourself. All right, if you like what you've seen, please click subscribe. Click the little alarm bell so you get notifications of when my new videos come out, because I have a ton of projects still on my workbench that are going to be pending over the next weeks and months, and I'm really excited to bring them to you. I answer any questions that I get, and I look forward to seeing you on my next project.